We're going to focus on two specific examples, and I believe they're both the fourth entries in their respective franchises, which is Ghostbusters Afterlife and Matrix Resurrections. Now, to me, both of these films are strange. I think for a lot of the reasons that we were just talking about, which was if you take a step back, if you think of like the 70s and 80s when these franchises started to become a thing, particularly in the 80s with sequels, etc. But I remember what used to happen is that once the franchise ran out of gas, that was it. It was done.
Yeah.
And then they would try to find another franchise. And these two movies in particular, and they're not the only ones, there's plenty of them, like, Disney's remaking its entire back catalogue at the moment as live action, as an example of how cynical some of this stuff is. But you would never see a sequel to a film 20 years after the last one, kind of thing. Matrix, I think the last film was back in 2003, and now we've got one in 2021. So that's like 18 years between them. The new Ghostbusters film, there was a sort of pseudo remake a couple of years ago, but if this one is really more closely tied to the original film, and I think the last sequel to that was back in the late 80s, from what I can remember. The thing that I like, I'll focus on Ghostbusters first. I actually did enjoy it, but I didn't feel good about it at the end of it, because I was trying to, compute what I'd actually watched. Because on the one hand, if you know the original film, this one absolutely fits in with that one. Like, it literally feels exactly like from a an experience. It gives you the same like that type of feel of what a Ghostbusters film is supposed to be. So that on that level, very successful in doing that. But on the other hand, yes, it's in a different setting. There's some different circumstances that lead to it, but it's the same villain that comes back. It's the same. It's like basically they set up a scenario that this villain comes back every so often. So basically you've got the same villain at the end and the same ending in effect, even though it's in a different setting. And they bank on the nostalgia of the original actors who do make an appearance at the end to, solve the dilemma. And so
are you suggesting, Ben, and I'm maybe being cynical here, that that sort of ending allows you to sell more Zool dolls?
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe you had some back from the 80s that are still in the cupboard that you could that you didn't get to sell the last time, that you could punch out there. And that's the thing that so I'm watching it and I thought they did a nice little sort of nostalgic trip by hitting a lot of the same beats, a lot of the same music, a lot of the same sort of investigation and stuff. And the only thing that was, I guess, different was they made it a more generational thing, because it's the next generation of the family picks it up, kind of thing. So I was kind of in two minds about what was going on with it. And whether or not it actually is a good film. And I felt like bad about that, because Ghostbusters never really had a good sequel in terms of its franchiseness.
Yes, that's true. And from the sounds of it, probably still doesn't.
Absolutely. The other thing is, I was going to mention the Matrix film, which again, strange for a whole host of other reasons, and how meta it was. Like, not quoting Facebook or anything, but the fact that it went down a very self-referential path. So there's some very strange scenes at the beginning of the film where Thomas Anderson is a game developer, and he's made an uber successful game trilogy called The Matrix, and the studio's coming to him telling him that they need to make a sequel, and they're going to make it with him or without him. Like, there's a whole scene at the front, and you can tell that that's basically what the film franchise discussion was about. Now, I don't know whether that was like making fun of it, or them trying to do the whole self-referential thing. They were replaying and restaging entire sequences from the first film. it probably had more philosophy injected back into it compared to the sequels, but then it's all of the action and the sequences are not shot like the original Matrix film, so it doesn't feel like a Matrix film. It's just bizarre on so many levels, and you want to like it because like they got some of the actors back and the original directors back, so there is some sense that it's similar to the other films and stuff, but I just don't know what's going on.
Once again, I've got to be cynical and just ask, do they have a bullet dodging scene or something like that, and they're walking up the walls, that like a little bit of a throwback to the original?
Well, it's worse. The characters actually refer to bullet time in the dialogue. So,
oh dear.
So again, very bizarre experience. And I guess just using those two things as an example, I just feel like that this emphasis on nostalgia is just I just don't think it's a good thing. I mean, I haven't been, a big fan of cinema in the last several years because of the fact that, as you've said, they've kept regurgitating old ideas, and effectively they've gotten to the point now where they don't care and they're just remaking old films over and over again. And I just don't see the point of going if that's what they're going to be doing.
Very true. Very true. I mean, and especially now, look, who knows? I wouldn't read anything into this comment, but maybe there is something in it. But it's just that downward spiral of quality as everything moves online, and we've seen it in everything from the general, use of social media has degenerated, and people's commentaries, opinions, etc., etc. And I think when it's easy to serve up and it becomes disposable, this is what you end up with.